All right, welcome back to Wrestling Retold and Relived with Richie Mars. I, of course, am your humble, gracious host, Richie Mars, and thank you for joining us for today's episode. It's a solo episode today. Haven't done one of these in a while, but it's a topic that I feel needs to be talked about a little bit. We're going to talk about Jey Uso and his Royal Rumble win and the reaction to it. But before we get to that, once again, thank you for joining me. You can always follow us on at Retold Richie Mars on the Instagram, the YouTube, and the TikTok for daily wrestling content and takes. But enough of the plugs. Let's talk about the topic at hand, and that's Jey Uso winning the WWE Royal Rumble of 2025. One of the biggest shocks of not only the year, even though it's still fairly new in the year, but in Royal Rumble history. Now, Jey Uso, in my opinion, has grown by leaps and bounds ever since he split off from his twin Jimmy in the pandemic era, and you really saw this guy come into his own because, to be honest, I don't think a lot of people, whether it be fans or people in the business of WWE in general, really expected much from Jey. And the reason is that you're always going to be compared to your tag partner, and it's even going to be more so when your tag partner is not only your brother, but your twin. And during that time period, Jimmy was out with an injury, and they did the whole right-hand man thing for Jey. And then you had main event Jey Uso as like a thank you for being in the main events with Roman and starting that tribal chief character. And people like to just say Jey is very limited in his in-ring ability, and he's not the most diverse in-ring performer. I don't think anyone who is a fan of Jey really claims that he is the most diverse in-ring performer. But the thing is, within WWE and wrestling in general, your moveset doesn't need to be as long as the dictionary in order to be a top WWE star. Shocker, the E in WWE is more emphasized than the second W. And that's the corner market that they're trying to appeal to. It's not just for the internet wrestling community, the IWC. It's not just for the casuals. It has to be a healthy mixture and balance of both, because you're trying to gain new fans too. And how do you do that? You try to appeal to as many audiences as you can. Like you've seen Jey over the past couple weeks on Raw, he's coming out with these different rappers, these different people from different walks of life, and a lot of people are just hyped up and happy to see him. He's a very popular act on the show. And the outrage that happened with Jey on the online spaces, which I don't really pay that much attention to, because even though online is very powerful nowadays, especially with certain things that's happened within wrestling, like you had the whole Daniel Bryan thing, you had the whole Cody Rock situation of last year, being very negative towards Jey Uso, I was kind of taken aback by it, because with Jey, it just kind of made sense to me that he would be in consideration for at least being a dark horse name to win the Royal Rumble, because they already had this story established with Gunther and Jey not being able to defeat Gunther. You know, he had that Saturday night's main event match against Gunther for the world title, didn't win. He's had many opportunities against Gunther, I believe. One was an IC title, didn't win due to Jimmy's interference. Then you had the semifinal of the King of the Ring, didn't happen, Jey passed out. So they've been telling the story, and I've made TikTok videos on it. I'm like, they're telling the story with Jey coming very close to defeating Gunther every time. I feel like it's leading to something more. And I don't recall if I said a WrestleMania, but I said down the line, like this is going to pay off somehow. And seeing Jey cut the promo last week on Raw and him saying, I know I could beat Gunther. You know, and I feel like a lot of people were just kind of eyeing John Cena, CM Punk, for their perspective programs, you know, with John Cena trying to go for number 17, with CM Punk doing what he wants to do at WrestleMania, because you had a lot of teases of a lot of different combinations of matches. You had Seth Rollins teasing a bunch of people, whether it be Gunther and Cody. You had Logan Paul and Gunther. You had Punk and Cody. You had Cody and Cena. You have Cody and Orton. You have all these different possibilities out there. And you can not go wrong with any one of them. But I think a lot of people who are reacting to Jey's win negatively, at least in my opinion from what I see, a lot of it's more projection that their preferred idea didn't get through. Because I'm going to be honest right now. Hypothetically, if John Cena or CM Punk win the Rumble, you're going to have that side of people saying, oh, why couldn't they have gone it to a younger guy? Why couldn't they have the Rumble go to a newer star? Like we've seen Cena, we've seen Punk. And that's been a heavy criticism for WWE for years. The over-reliance on older stars. Like you had Undertaker, you had Brock Lesnar, you had John Cena, all these guys who were in these main events, and that's a large reason why WWE, in my opinion, was losing popularity amongst that era, because you weren't creating new stars, you weren't getting more opportunities with the stars you already have. I mean, look at in the past, you had Zack Ryder, Rusev, who got organically over, and WWE would kibosh it because it wasn't their creation. And you could say something similar like LA Knight, but with LA Knight, he's still a featured act on the show. And he doesn't look like that his popularity is diminishing. Could he be used in a more dynamic way? Absolutely. I don't think 2024 was a really landmark year for LA Knight. He won the U.S. title off Logan Paul, and that was a big featured match on SummerSlam. But the U.S. reign itself, you could have done a little bit more with it, and there's been a lot of criticisms on LA Knight as well. I remember when he was first getting this push and reaction, a lot of people were saying, oh, his in-ring work isn't that great. He's just a Rock and Stone Cold ripoff, all of these different things. And it just kind of seems every time there's a newer star, you're always going to see that. You're always going to see that when you have a newer star that is going to a different position, who's increasing their stock, who's going to be on top of the mountain, whether it's in positioning or in a form of a push or a huge match. You're going to get all this feedback from it. You're going to get a lot more negative feedback from it. And with Jey, like every week you see him out doing his entrance. It's very interactive. He has the hand motion. He has the yeet, the catchphrase. And he just has that likability factor in it. And a lot of people like to clown on him for his in-ring ability. Whether it's just, super kicks, spear, splash, Samoan drop, that's it. But the thing is, a lot of the top stars in WWE specifically, there are people who don't have that much of a diverse moveset. And the thing with Jey's moveset in particular, every move he hits gets a reaction from the crowd. It doesn't matter how many, but he does have a diverse moveset, whether people want to admit that or not, in the terms of that the fans will always react to what he's doing. Like when he's doing the yeet punches, people are saying yeet. Whether he's hitting the Samoa drop, people react. Super kick, yeet. Splash, yeet. Hip attack. People are always reacting. It's very similar to John Cena, Rock, Austin, and I'm not comparing Jey to those guys. I'm just saying with the moveset that they have, they didn't need to do a whole lot because they didn't need to. Because why do they need to go off the top rope? They don't. With John Cena, it's the 5 moves of doom, shoulder tackle, whirly bird, 5-knuckle shuffle, attitude adjustment, STF, boom. Rock, Samoan drop, dragon screw, sharpshooter, spinebuster, people's elbow, rock bottom. Austin, Thez press, stomps, punches, mudhole, stunner. You have to categorize the audience in a way where there's some familiarity, there's some recognizability to it. And with Jey, his moveset has become recognizable to the fan and the fan base at large. So they know what moves he's going to hit. And the way to diverse that has to come in who you're working with, your opponent, things like that. And with Jey, yes, he did have a bad match with his brother Jimmy at WrestleMania. It did fall short below expectations. His match with Roman Reigns at SummerSlam 2023 wasn't that great. But if you're going to hold those two matches against Jey and not acknowledge his other matches with Braun Breaker, where the crowd was super behind him when he won the IC title, he surpassed Roman Reigns and CM Punk in merchandise sales for just winning the IC title, which is crazy because Roman and Punk are the two top established names right now, along with Cody, and I would throw Rhea in there. I think Rhea Ripley is also in that core four, but Jey is definitely in that top 5 scenario of somebody that the company is behind and has gotten over organically due to the Bloodline story and his journey overall and his character development from 2020 being the lackey into the Yeet guy has been phenomenal in terms of just crowd control and popularity. And that's another thing I want to talk about. Jey Uso's crowd control is some of the best in WWE. Like I mentioned before, like he has the crowd in the palm of his hands. Like the live reaction, it's almost like a rave-esque feel, and then the people yeeting with everything. And Jey just has a good way of controlling his pacing. And even though that makes his matches a lot more similar, the difference is people are a lot more invested in that match. You have a lot of people who are recognized for their in-ring ability, like Daniel Bryan, Seth Rollins, AJ Styles, all these dynamic guys. But you need, at least in WWE, you need that larger-than-life presence about them. And Jey has definitely transformed himself into one of those guys that WWE can rely on, whether people recognize it or not. I mean, last year in 2024, he's had the most matches out of any WWE star, and that is a fact. And the thing is where people say, oh, he didn't put in the work. Well, I mean, most matches of 2024, while being a solo guy, while trying to break away from not only your brother, but also the faction of the Bloodline as well, which was probably the biggest story in WWE in recent time. It's not an easy thing, and I think a lot of credit has to go to Jey for establishing himself as his own guy. And I think a lot of people kind of like exposed themselves when Jey won the Rumble. And what I mean by that is that the wrestling community at large always wants something new, something fresh. They don't want to rely on the old names like I mentioned before. But now WWE is listening to the feedback, listening to the audience in the arena, listening to some fans online as well. They're taking a good median out of all these fan bases. And they took a chance where in the past couple months they were criticized of playing it too safe when it came to their shows. Survivor Series, nothing really happened. Saturday Night's Main Event, which I was there for the Cody and KO show. Nice nostalgia, but nothing really happened on screen. Post-show, you had the package pile driver spot, but nothing really happened. Saturday Night's Main Event, where Jey lost to Gunther. Again, nothing major really happened. And I think that made the Rumble win a lot more shocking because we were kind of like in this holding pattern of just like, I don't want to say like Groundhog Day, but it's more like, all right, these shows are playing it very safe. Like, this isn't really that, I don't want to say enjoyable because it's just like, it met expectations. I didn't have my expectations kind of falter. It was just kind of like, all right, that show happened. What's next? And that's a big thing with wrestling fans. It's a big what have you done for me lately kind of fandom where somebody who's was hot today, tomorrow, it's going to be a different story. And that's going to keep happening to the point where if you're not showing a difference in appearance, a difference in a program, or a difference in emotion, people are going to kind of be lukewarm on you. And then eventually, if that doesn't change, it turns into ambivalence, and that's not what you want. And when Jey won the Rumble, and people are saying, oh, he's just a tag guy. Oh, he doesn't deserve to be there. Oh, he isn't as a big enough star to be a Rumble winner or have a match at that caliber at next year's WrestleMania due to 2 bad matches he's had in the past. But the thing is, people wanted WWE to take risks, and they wanted to have more trust into newer established stars to be put in different positions, like Jey Uso. And now that he's there, now you have the fan base, at least a small majority of it, just kind of like turn their backs on that and say, no, we don't want that. Even though the reaction on television tells a completely different story. Now, of course, that's all going to lead to how Jay's going to be booked in the future in terms of, are they just going to keep him coasting? Or are they just going to keep him the yeet guy? Are we not going to see as dramatic of a shift? And just by watching the promo on Raw where he was thanking everybody for the support, how he didn't think he would be here as the Royal Rumble winner, not being confident in himself. And you heard real emotion in his voice. You know, you can't fake that. And people criticizing his promo skills and who are probably going to make fun of him crying, it's just kind of ludicrous that you're going to hold that against him when there are many people who used emotion in promos and praise, but Jay does it not cleanly. You know, you heard his voice crack, you heard his voice break, and he was stumbling on his words, but that just kind of shows you the real emotion. So do you want somebody who's real, or do you want someone who's manufactured to your tastes? And it's okay if you don't like Jey Uso as the in-ring performer. If he doesn't do it for you, I don't blame you. But every metric that WWE's following when it comes to their business, I don't blame them for trying to raise Jey Uso's stock when it comes to giving him this Royal Rumble nod. Because what would that Royal Rumble match win do for John Cena? It wouldn't really do anything to his legacy. He would be a 3-time Rumble winner, yeah, tied with Stone Cold, but John Cena's John Cena. That Rumble win was not going to further establish him as the greatest of all time. What about CM Punk? CM Punk did an ESPN interview, and the host, I think it was Daniel Cormier and Chael Sonnen, but they asked him how he felt about not winning the Rumble, and Punk was just saying, he pitches for himself to lose, boastfully. This is what he claims, so don't get angry at me. He pitches himself to lose because there's more story in there. The story's in the chase. And that's a big thing when it comes to Jey Uso as well. And for most baby faces, it's that chasing the dragon, chasing that goal kind of story. And a lot of people had this criticism with Cody when Cody won the championship. And I said, if Cody finishes the story, they need to have things lined up for him quickly in terms of story development and just trying to establish him as who they want him to be as champion. Cody's been a great champion in terms of revenue, in terms of live event performance, in terms of merchandise sale. His matches have all been good, except for that Solo Sikoa match at SummerSlam. But again, that was only one match. All his other matches have hit, in my opinion. And with Jay, a lot of people were on his side because Jay has a natural likability about him. And that's very tough to find. He has this super likability that not a lot of talents have, and that natural charisma. I compare what Jey Uso is now to how Jeff Hardy was in the past. Because Jeff Hardy had a lot of these criticisms that people are saying right now about Jey Uso. He's not a great in-ring competitor. He's an entrance. He just has smoke and mirrors. He was best utilized in a tag team. But the problem is that Jeff Hardy was super over. And what do you do with somebody who's super over? You reward them by presenting them with the top prize or the opportunity at the top prize. And that's going to further establish to see if they can be a benefit to your company monetarily as that top guy, or they go back in a certain position where they fit best in. And with Jay, his popularity is just too big to deny. You saw the reaction last year in Backlash in France. You saw the reaction when he won the IC title from Braun Breaker. You saw the reaction when he won the Rumble. And the thing is with John Cena and his retirement tour, and I'm just bouncing off different like talking points, and I apologize. But this is how my mind works. With John Cena and his retirement tour, if he won the Rumble right away after being on this 2,000 plus day losing streak, the drama's over. The drama of him reaching number 17 is over. Because people are expecting him to go into WrestleMania, win 17, and that's the end of the story. But the drama is the race against the clock. John Cena only has this year to win the championship, and people's paranoia about the story not being played out to their liking is getting to them, in my opinion. Now, John Cena getting a title shot as the last WrestleMania, is that a good beat to end on? Yeah. Should he win the championship there? I don't think so. I think, again, the story's in the chase, like CM Punk said. There's more intriguing options if someone were to lose. And then you had the fight, and you had to go through different directions in order to accomplish that goal. I use this example today, and with the Avengers Endgame, we knew all the people that were blipped were going to come back. But we didn't know how they were going to come back. We didn't know what sacrifices would be made. We wouldn't know what they would do to bring everybody back, what different characterizations, what paths people would be on, what interactions, all these different things on this ensemble cast. We didn't know what was going to happen, even though we had an idea what the ending would be. And wrestling's a lot like the same way with storytelling. It's good to keep the audience on your toes and not giving them exactly what they pictured in their mind. Like, even though the Cody Rhodes story, where he finished the story, he lost to Roman Reigns, and then we're like, oh, he's going to go WrestleMania 40 and win the championship instead. And if he won it at 39, it would have been fine. I think people would have turned on him probably a lot sooner if that happened. But since they extended it another year and had Cody built up, with the Brock Lesnar thing, the Judgment Day, 50-week feud that he had with, including Seth Rollins, Cody Rhodes, Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens, all that kind of stuff. And then the Shinsuke feud. Then you got the Roman. And then you got the best possible version of the story with The Rock involved and elevating Cody in that regard. Hindsight 2020, WrestleMania 40 was the perfect time, but you don't know that as it's happening because we're all watching this happen in real time. With Jey and his story, it wasn't the most put out there story. Jey would lose a lot in big time situations, and it would make sense for his character arc because, again, like the song says, it's just me, Oos. It's just Jey. And Jey is not the person that you think of when you think of singles wrestling. You think of him as a part of a tag team, but not singles wrestling. So it makes sense that he wouldn't be as successful as his main star counterparts because in, Kafeb or in universe, he's not the one that is a single star. So him losing does make sense, even though he has a great performance. And then when he won the IC title from Braun Breaker, I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. Give him an IC title run. But then during that time, the Bloodline stuff was happening with the Bloodline Civil War. And I was like, they're going to probably make him drop it fairly quickly. But they still gave it to him in terms of just, hey, you've done a great job. Here you go. Get that big win under your belt. And it was a huge moment for not only him, but I think the company in their mind just saw Jey as this constant person who's growing as a star, who's growing as a character. And don't worry, I'm going to get to his characterization because a lot of people just accuse him of being the yeet guy. When, again, he's so much more than that. And I don't think a lot of people are being honest when they just say, oh, he's just the yeet guy. And pretty much that. I will say that I think they should have gave him the IC title sooner. But again, you have Braun Breaker you're trying to build as well, so you have to have that happy median. And when he won the IC title, the crowd erupted. When have you heard that from a Monday Night Raw crowd? Or a title change for the IC title? On a Monday Night Raw. It's like again, people were so excited for Jey to accomplish this goal, and he has the people and the crowd control to warrant that kind of reaction. And it's pretty cool that he got that moment when he reunited with Roman. It wasn't to my liking, just because, again, Roman said some very like unforgiving, hurtful things, and then it's like, oh, okay, we're just gonna squash it, just kind of like that. But again, there's still that lingering thing, and this is what Triple H does with his storytelling. He leaves out little nuggets, he plants little seeds here and there where things might become an issue in the future, but he doesn't go to that feud right away. He makes you kind of like put it in your mind, you forget about it a bit, and then when you revisit that, you're like, oh, I remember when he put it right here. It's kind of like the backstage stuff where it's like you see characters in the background, but this is like the verbal version of that. And when Sami said he would only forgive Roman if he apologized to Jey, and Roman said, this is a mistake, or you're out of your mind, things like that. So there's still that tension there, and you could still pay it off down the line. I think a lot of people's worry is like a matter of when. When is it going to happen? And they're like, oh, I'm excited. I want this idea now. I want this match now. But if you kind of like tease it here, and then down the line, that's when you pay it off. You could point back to like months ago and be like, oh, I remember when they interacted here. I remember when that happened. Same thing that happened with Cody and Punk. For instance, last year it was that in-ring segment, then it was the Rumble, Cody eliminated Punk, and then you had that promo right before the Rumble where Cody's asking if Punk's a friend, and they had that tease once again. And it's a smart, in my opinion, you might disagree, it's smart in my opinion to set these little things up. So then you get a chance to see the relationship play out. We're not just told they're friends. We get to see their reactions with each other, their interactions with each other, and their consistent building upon building upon building of these relationships. And relationships make wrestling, whether it's a tag relationship, whether it's a friendship, whether it's enemies, whether it's, a valet-manager relationship. Like the Paul Heyman and Roman Reigns relationship is one of the strongest relationships we've seen on television. Same thing with Roman, Jey, Jimmy, Solo. That's why it's been going on for TV and for so long, because you're getting all these different dynamics with it, like Roman being heel, Jey being babyface, everyone being a heel, Jimmy turning on Roman, getting that reaction, Sami, that, oh my God, the Sami Zayn shared to the back of Roman was a deafening pop. Like one of the top pops probably, my gosh, in just like years. That's one of the pops I think to. It's just deafening. Like you could feel like the vibration in it. And to see the relationship that Jey has had, not only with Roman, not only with Jimmy, not only with Solo, but with Sami, with Kevin, with Cody, with Seth, you get to see him build all these friendships and relationships on his own where it helps flesh out his character. Same thing with the stuff with Gunther. And I think a lot of people take Jey's just career for granted in terms of his development. Because like I said, pandemic era, you had Jey like being like this, oh, he's Roman's cousin. So of course he's going to be the first one so you could solidify that Roman heel turn. And that heel turn wouldn't have been as successful without the Jey matches, in my opinion. And you got to see Jey have like real emotion. There would be some like weeks where you could see him like almost crying. You could see him like frustrated. You could see him all these different emotions. Same thing with the whole Sami thing. The whole Sami thing worked so well when Jey finally accepted Sami. The hug got a pop from the crowd, and they're the bad guys. Same thing with the trial of Sami Zayn, where it's like Jey saving Sami at the last minute. The whole Usi stuff, there's a lot of great things that Jey was a part of where he's not just the Yeet guy. And if you want to just say, oh, he just does Yeet now. Yes, he does, but when he gets serious, like he was tonight on Raw, then that stands out. If someone is hilarious, right? If someone is funny, like a comedian, and then they're finally serious, you're like, oh, they're actually really serious. It's more of a counter shock because this person was funny. With Jey, he still has the Yeet thing, but he still has that story and still has that connection in where it's believable for him to take things and situations seriously. And to just kind of say he doesn't have a character is just totally wrong. You just look at his character arc from 2020 all the way to present day. It's like night and day. Yeah, there hasn't been much character development in the ways of probably like last year in a major sense, but in subtle ways of him trying to defeat Gunther. That's a story that WWE has been telling. Now, are there more attractive matches that you could probably do for a WrestleMania? Sure. There are a lot of options, and that's what's so great about WWE right now. The main roster and the hierarchy in general is so deep. And the problem is, and it's a good problem to have, not everybody can be at the top. It's just not feasibly possible. If you, like everyone's favorite, they would give them a belt if they could. And the thing is, if you give everybody a belt, it makes all these championships a lot special. And with Jey, he's in a position where he is crossing over from casual audience to some people on the internet wrestling community, as tough as that might be to believed, to like potential mainstream, if they still want to give him like those special entrances with the special guests, whether it's rappers, comedians, anything like that. And even though Yeet is still like a decade past its popularity or its inception, like it's still working in a wrestling setting. If people were truly done with Yeet, then Jey would have just gone like, flash at the pan, like a Fandangoing. Does anyone remember Fandangoing? But the thing is, it worked. It worked for him. It's easy. Like Daniel Bryan, the yes chant. Worked for him. It was easy. It's easy to get over. It's easy to chant. The hand motion, easy to do. And that's what a lot of people like during these wrestling shows. It's the interaction between the performer and the fans, because that's what breeds the connection. Same thing with John Cena with the hand sign and the you can't see me stuff. Jey has gotten like this special popularity about him that's very rare in different performers. And it just kind of goes to show that you don't need to be the most diverse in that ring. You don't need to have all these moveset. Now, can Jey add to his moveset? Absolutely. He hit a Poison Rana on Jacob Fatu in the Rumble. He had a Hurricane Rana against Gunther. There are attempts that he's doing in order to diverse his moveset. He might not do it every single match, but he doesn't really need to in terms of getting a reaction from the crowd. And it's almost like work harder, like work smarter, not harder. And that's what Jey's doing. And I don't think a lot of people like that, because we're in this work rate, quote unquote, era of professional wrestling where people really are in tune to the in-ring product and think they know what makes a good match, when in actuality, they're being told by other people what makes a good match. If that makes any sense. Because I know what I like in wrestling. I'm not convinced other people know what they like about wrestling. And they wait for people to say their thoughts on wrestling, listen to people in the business on what they think wrestling is, and then parrot those ideas. Because a lot of these conversations that I've had with Jey, I've had some really interesting conversations with people. Like people saying oh, you're just a Jey fan if you're defending the decision. Or it's just oh, he's terrible in the ring, he's this, he's that, just so limited, he doesn't know how to do. I could do a better match than him. Where it's just if you take away, this one was my favorite, if you take away his popularity, what do you have left? You could kind of say that for all performers, can't you? It's if you take away Jeff Hardy's popularity, he's just doing flips. If you take away John Cena's popularity, he's just a bodybuilder. You know what I mean? And people who wanted John Cena to win the Rumble. John Cena, in his past couple matches, against Solo Sikoa, against Austin Theory, he was not Big Match John. He was Hollywood John, where it's a very safe version of John Cena. And that's saying something, because John Cena is pretty safe. But he's not doing any experimental moves like he did during his US title open challenge and his later career to vary it up. When John Cena became WWE champion for the first time, there was a lot of criticism due to his in-ring work. And that's why the fans kept booing him, was because they didn't see a significant change. And they saw these other guys like Kurt Angle, Chris Jericho, Edge, all these people that they wanted to see in that position, but John Cena, like in the perception, was being handed these opportunities, even though his character or in-ring work was not up to stuff. But now, people want John Cena, because I know it's last year, but they want someone who currently has a very limited in-ring ability to win the Rumble and go on to be champion. Even though John Cena, I know they said like this is like a full-time run. As far as we know, it's 35 to 40 dates, which isn't a lot. And if he were to become champion, people would, like, one, they would probably let it slide because it's John Cena. But if John Cena won and you're criticizing Jey Uso for being limited and not John Cena for being limited, I'm sorry, I can't rock with that. I can't rock with that reason. Because you got to at least have some consistency when it comes with that. And I grew up on John Cena. I grew up on CM Punk. I like both of them. But the smart decision here, if you want to build a new star, if you want to build the future, if you want to build like the person that's going to be there consistently, you give the Rumble match to Jey. Now, is he going to main event WrestleMania? Depends what you mean. You know, do I see it main eventing like night 1 or night 2? Depends on the story. I don't really see it happening, if I'm being completely honest with you. I think like a strong like night 1 main or semi-main. But with the Royal Rumble in WWE, they changed their term of what a main event is so many times, where it's like they like build up, oh, it's a four main events in one night, when that's not really true. Or people are saying main event, it's last match on the show, which I'm like, all right, last match on the show. Do I think Jey versus Gunther is going to be the last match on the show? Depending on the build, I think the best we can get is probably the Saturday or the night 1 WrestleMania. I almost forgot like what it is, but I think they call it WrestleMania Saturday, or that's at least their term for it. So I think WrestleMania Saturday, I could see it happening. But again, it depends on the story they're telling, and the story doesn't need to be overly complex. You know, Gunther in the promo on Raw said it'd be a waste of his time, it's a waste of his legacy, basically playing the part of the IWC, and people who see Jey as nothing more than just, you know, flash at the pan, even though he's stayed consistently over and consistently has brought in a lot of money for the company. And then you have Jey, who's just saying, look, I know I can beat you, but I believe I can be world champion one day. Again, doesn't need to hit you over the head with all this complexity, but it's a simple story and it works. And I guarantee you, people will be cheering for Jey at WrestleMania. And then you're going to have all these people come out saying, oh, but what's next? What's next? And it's going to be similar to what Cody went through when he was a champion. There were people who were like 7 days in already complaining about Cody's run. There are going to be people who are going to complain about Jey regardless. And that's how you know that it's working, because people are paying attention. People were paying attention to Jey. Those who were upset by Jey winning the Rumble probably watched Raw tonight. Not going to lie. I don't think anybody, like in large numbers and large droves, said, oh, Jey won the Rumble, I'm not watching WWE anymore. Hashtag cancel the WWE network. Everyone comes back eventually. And I think I saw something like Jey's likes to dislikes on his Rumble win had like more dislikes than likes. And the thing is, when I saw that on Raw, yeah, I heard some boos, but they got drowned out pretty fast with yeet chants, with the music, with everything like that. And it just kind of goes to show how minuscule the IWC like sees like the bigger picture when it comes to WWE's marketing plan. And WWE for a long time marketed to one man and one man alone and what he thought wrestling was. But now with this Triple H era, there's a lot more flavors of ice cream and a lot more room to experiment and not just go with one man's opinion in wrestling. Now there's enough room for multiple people's likes and dislikes in wrestling. And Jey Uso does check off that quota of what WWE sees in a main event talent when it comes to fan reaction, crowd control, consistency, and just, popularity in general, in both in attendance and monetarily. And it's like having like a very successful spin-off show. You had the Bloodline, now you have the Jey Uso show. If I want to go, it's like Cheers and Frasier. I think those were two related shows. It's not like a Friends Joey situation. It's more like a Cheers and Frasier situation. I really hope I'm making the right comparison. If I'm not, I'm sure somebody would let me know that the comparison is wrong. But with Jey Uso, and I say but with Jey Uso like so many times in this, it's going to be great listening to this back. Jey Uso isn't a bad choice. Is he the choice? I don't think he was anyone's choice, like first choice. But WWE is taking a chance on somebody who's popular. And how many times have we wanted WWE to take a chance on somebody who's gaining momentum, who's getting all the right things right, who's checking off all the boxes? And if Jey Uso succeeds here, what's going to stop WWE from having the next guy who gets organically over like Jey Uso from putting them in this similar position? Like a LA Knight in the future, like a Dakota Kai, building this fan support to the point where the company does notice and does give them opportunities. And if they knock one opportunity out of the park, that leads to another one, and then another one, and then another one, and then another one. But to sit here and say that Jey Uso was the wrong choice or a bad choice, maybe for you and your fandom, but for the overall picture of WWE and what they look for and what they're trying to accomplish, it was the right one. And I just think that people, surprise, surprise, in the wrestling community, blew it way out of proportion, like they tend to do. They think this is the worst decision ever until the show happens next week, and then the worst decision ever happens again. And then they need their vitriol and their justification on why it's a bad decision. But with this one right here, I haven't had a good argument used against me when it comes to why Jey is the bad choice. Oh, he's bad in the ring. So many top stars' move sets were limited. Oh, but he's just an entrance. So many top stars were just an entrance. Oh, he can't cut a promo. There are a ton of promos within the past 5 years where he doesn't use Yeet that he can get an emotional reaction out of. Oh, his matches are terrible. I could point to at least 5 matches right now. World title match against Seth Rollins. You got Roman Reigns, Night of Champions 2020. Even though it's in the Thunderdome, I still really enjoy that match. You had him versus Braun Breaker. Both of those matches for the IC title were really good. Dare I say great. And his IC title match with Gunther, his King of the Ring match with Gunther, all very good. And these are like mostly television matches too. And being a good TV wrestler and being a good pay-per-view wrestler are two different things. I think that Jey getting that opportunity will pay off dividends for the company no matter what, but he's getting the chance to fail. At least give him the chance to fail. And people, I had like a comment today saying it's like, oh, he failed at WrestleMania 40. Like one bad match and all of a sudden he's a failure. Like all these top stars that you name, John Cena, Stone Cold, Rock, Jeff Hardy, Gunther, Daniel Bryan, etc. All these guys have had bad matches before they became like champion, world champion. So does that mean everybody that has a bad match once, that means we have to write them off as a future world champion or a top star? No. It's just a lazy argument. And that's why I think like the whole Jey Uso thing gets me is because all the arguments against him are not well thought out, in my opinion. It's a very lazy kind of argument. Because with Jey, he's pretty much checked off everything WWE wants in a star, and I've said that before. But when you show people and you tell people and you just go like, hey, here it is. It's either they refuse to acknowledge it or it doesn't fit what their view of wrestling is. And wrestling is many different flavors. Even though I'm not a fan of pistachio ice cream, it's still going to be in the shop regardless. And there is an audience for it. And Jey Uso is a flavor that both the casuals, the adults, the kids, the teens, the internet wrestling community can enjoy. Now, are there people that don't enjoy Jey Uso? Absolutely. And that's your prerogative if you don't like him. But give him the chance to at least fail. Give him the chance to at least see this thing through. Because if this is a success, and you don't need to cheer for it if you don't like the story, but if you wait out and you see if it's actually going to work, chances are if you are high on somebody and you know that they're going to break through that glass ceiling, that proverbial glass ceiling, they're going to gain more opportunities. The roster at large is going to gain more opportunities. You guys didn't want a safe product. They threw a curveball at you. Now it's a problem? No. I don't want to know where this ride is taking me when it comes to watching wrestling. I want to be worked, quote unquote. I want to be taken for a ride. I want to see where the next thing's going, where I have to watch next week. And WWE has hit something with the Jey Uso thing. Do I think it's going to be the greatest match of all time? No. Very few things are the greatest XYZ of all time. Is Jey Uso my favorite WWE superstar? No. But I'm willing to give him a chance. Because as a fan, that's the least I can do with the amount of work he's put in. And a lot of his work has been very, very good, whether people want to admit it or not. If people are just looking at that one thing for wrestling, they are going to stay in that box and not broaden their view or broaden their horizon. I want to see wrestling from so many different perspectives. I want to see wrestling from the casuals' perspective. I want to see the wrestling from the diehards' perspective. I want to see wrestling from the wrestler's perspective, from somebody's first time watching wrestling's perspective, and how they react and how everything kind of flows from there. And get a whole overall picture so I can get why decisions are made. And this decision right here, I think it was the right one. You might disagree with me. We can have a conversation about it. Not hard to find. Maybe I'll have a debate show about it like I did with the whole Cody Rock thing. But overall, I think Jey winning the Rumble was fine. I think he is probably going to be a success, is my best guess in terms of story, popularity, trying to build that momentum. And he does have the ability to vary it up. Is he unconventional? Sure. Is he crisp? No. Does he need to be? No. He's not going to be your version of what a top star should be. But that doesn't mean he's not a top star for WWE. But that is all I really have for the whole Jey Uso winning the Rumble thing. I didn't expect to go, I guess almost 50 minutes, almost an hour talking about Jey Uso. I think this is might be the only Jey Uso solo podcast I do. But with the Usos in general and just the Bloodline in general, I have to say I am thankful for them. Their video on I did a video on Jimmy turning on Jey at SummerSlam that got my TikTok traction going, and my Jey Uso videos always trend and gain popularity. I think Jey's videos are probably the top portion of just videos that trend the most for me. And I'm not going to say, oh, that's proof that Jey's over with everybody, but in terms of the algorithm that I'm currently in, Jey's videos always do well for me. Like, I'm talking about 50K views. I'm talking about 70K views. I'm talking about all those kind of like views, thousands of likes. Yeah, you know. So he is popular. You know, he's at least in like TikTok world, he's popular. But sometimes that's all you need. All you need is a one chance to go viral or one chance to spread, and that's what happens. That's what happens in this crazy world of professional wrestling. You never know what's gonna hit, and nobody expected Jey Uso to hit like he did, and him winning the Rumble just makes sense. But that's gonna do it for this episode. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Wrestling Retold and Relived with Richie Mars. I, of course, am Richie Mars. Again, you could follow us. You could listen to this on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. And you could follow me at Retold Richie Mars on Instagram, on Twitter, don't use it, on YouTube, and on TikTok. TTFN, ta-ta for now, and I will see you next time.